and welcome to a special interview with Cynthia Calabrese from the Women's Biblical Counseling Center. Welcome, Cindy, and thank you for being on for such a time as this.
Thank you, James.
Well, we want to talk about a very important topic here, a topic that's not spoken of often when it comes to churches. Cindy, take it away.
Yes, we are going to be talking about abuse. Abuse. Um, it is now just coming to the forefront in the church, I believe,
Hmm.
as more people are coming forward and it's being talked about more openly in the church. Um, there has been uh, so much in the church that has been kept secret. And I think a lot of times, mostly, is that the church has not been prepared to minister to the various types of abuse that there are. And so I know that there is the Biblical Counseling Coalition who is reaching out to a lot of the churches with various kinds of trainings and helping the church get educated in this.
Okay, and so actually, Cindy actually wrote an article on the image of God as it pertains to one who was abused, Cindy. And so
Hmm.
I have the article here. Um, you mind if I start asking you questions about the article
Yes, go ahead.
specifically?
Hmm.
So here's the first question: um, When someone is abused, right? And we're going to take it from a Christian perspective. So the women that you counsel at your biblical women's biblical counseling center, are they believers or not? What's the percentages there?
I would have to say that 95% of the women that come to the center are believers.
Okay.
Um, those that do not know the Lord will be given the gospel,
Okay.
of course.
Okay.
And some, there's either one of two things that they do. They will either continue counseling or they will not continue counseling.
Okay.
It's that simple.
Okay. Okay. So when someone is a believer and they're abused, in your article here, you talk about them losing their voice, losing their ability to express themselves. When they go through some sort of trauma, they start closing up and walls begin to build. So here's my first question: Why does those who are abused lose the ability to express themselves?
There are many reasons that this happens.
Okay.
Um, when when somebody is going through abuse constantly, day in and day out, and most of this starts in childhood.
Hmm.
And so, as a young child who is unable to process this mentally,
Hmm.
um, they learn certain ways um, of responding to the abuse, and one of the ways is they can't talk back. They can't say yes or no, and so this is one way that they lose their voice. Another is where um, they are constantly being um, manipulated, constantly being criticized. There's a lot of shame involved, perhaps guilt involved, and they have such low self-esteem. They have and their identity in Christ has been affected once they come to Christ. So they're bringing all of this into their relationship with God, and so they have learned how not to speak, just maybe to stay safe.
And so, because they're so afraid, you're saying to stay safe, one of their coping mechanisms is to just be quiet and not say anything.
Yes, yes.
Wow. Uh, just a question about your counseling center. Do the majority of the women you counsel at the women's counseling center, is the majority of those women have some sort of trauma in their past?
Yes, I would say 85%
Wow.
of the population of women that I counsel are either currently in abusive situations or coming out of abusive situations and or domestic violence.
And so when you say abusive situations, you're talking about abuse carried with them from childhood.
Carried with them from childhood, yes. And some are currently in abusive situations in their marriages, perhaps.
A- Abusive situations in their marital relations,
Yes.
95%.
85.
No, I'm saying 95% that come to you are Christians.
Yes. Yes.
95% of women you counsel are
Yes.
Christians, and a large majority of them are in abusive relationships in their
Yeah.
marriages. Is that what you're saying? Now, when you say abusive, are we talking physical or?
Or there's a few different kinds of abuse. You have physical abuse, you have sexual abuse, you have emotional, um,
But the
financial abuse, spiritual abuse.
but the majority of what you're seeing is what?
Yes.
Is what? Which one?
It's physical abuse and
Wow.
sexual abuse.
Okay. All right. So when someone has experienced trauma in their background, and they lose the ability to speak, to express themselves,
Hmm.
and so they're coming into a marriage, or you could just say in general any relationship, right?
Yes.
Um, any relationship you have here on earth, you're going to have two people who were born in sin, shaped in iniquity, and there's automatically scars from sin and walls built up. But in a relationship, how do two sinners create a relationship to where the freedom of thoughts and feelings can flow back and forth? Transparency. How? What are some of the ground rules? How do you move towards, within any given relationship of believers, move towards transparency where people are free to express themselves?
That's a very good question. Um, and depending upon where they are in their brokenness,
Mm-hmm.
it's a matter of um, discipleship counseling, number one,
Mm-hmm.
and um, speaking the truth in love. The greatest commandment that is the greatest commandment for a reason. Love the Lord your God with your whole heart, soul, mind, and strength,
Mm-hmm.
and then your neighbor as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so to work through to that point of mutual transparency, there has to be honesty and there has to be an understanding of the image of God, first of all, a true image of God and an understanding of who they are in Christ, their identity in Christ.
Now, so what? I do not encourage people to open themselves up to any and everybody, as I'm sure you would agree with
Right.
that.
No, I agree with that.
What are you looking for? But we all need it. All of us need that friend or two that we can be transparent with and bounce things off of and just be honest with. What does a person look for in another to say, yep, that's a person I can open up to, or no, buddy, the walls will stay up with you? What should someone look for when looking for someone they can be transparent with?
I think that they should look for a person who loves the Lord
Mm-hmm.
and who makes those choices that will honor and glorify Him, that are
Mm-hmm.
walking right before the Lord.
Mm-hmm. So, if in a dating relationship you suggest you don't automatically look for how beautiful the eyes are, or
You could do that, but it's not going to get you very far. No, no. For those lasting
yeah,
relationships,
yeah,
um, you want somebody who loves the Lord
yeah.
first and
I
foremost.
I've had, and sometimes years ago I used to speak to some youth groups, and I used to talk to the Christian young believers, and I said, look, let me explain to you a reasonable, logical reason why you want to look for someone who loves the Lord. Because I always try to appeal to people with logic. I think nowadays good luck with that, with the issues floating around now. But I used to reason with the young people, and I say, look, if you're dating someone, right, you're looking for someone who's going to be loyal, right? Yes. You're
Yeah.
looking for someone who's going to be love you for who you are, right? Yes, yes. I say, so, young lady, if you're looking for a man, and this man isn't going to church and being in relationships, if this man can't be loyal to a God who made him, a God who raises the sun in the east and sets in the west, a God who gives him oxygen and life and breath and put him on earth. If man can't be loyal to that person, what makes you think he's going to be loyal to you?
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a lot of young people, male and female, said that kind of makes sense. I say, I hope it makes a lot of sense to you. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're looking for that, yes, loyalty and honesty. If a person can be loyal and honest with their creator, what makes you think they can be loyal and honest to you? I have another question looking at your reading over your article.
Okay.
In a relationship, particularly in a marriage, so it's a two-part question. Uh, when people dealing with trauma, they bring it into their relationships. They get to a point to where the past and some form of trauma overwhelms them, and they find themselves unable to be honest, unable to communicate. So here's my question: how does a person get to a point of complete powerlessness? They get to a point where they shut down. How do they get to that point? That's the first point. And then two, how do you encourage a person to go beyond the point that they find themselves at? So the first point is, how does a person get to a point where they find themselves completely powerless and they give up hope?
Um, that occurs mostly over time.
Mm-hmm.
Constant pain and suffering
Mm-hmm.
being endured.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with regards, I'm going to speak um, from the perspective of abuse. That this is over a long period of time, usually that this is taking place, and when abusers will usually that they tend to isolate the person that they're abusing. And so this person is brought to this point of isolation, that's brought to this point of where they don't even know who they are anymore. They are their life has been one now that has been used by this other person that's supposed to care for them, that's supposed to love them, and they've lost hope.
They've
They've
lost.
lost hope.
But let's say, for example, the person I'm speaking specifically to is a person who has moved beyond there. They're no longer being abused as a child. They find themselves in a marriage, and I've heard this a lot of times, going to seminary and listening to some of my friends. They find themselves in a relationship to whereas, let's say, the wife, because of past trauma, has gotten to a point in their marriage where she shuts down. And I've
Yes.
heard it vice versa too. The wife saying he won't speak to me anymore. How does a true believer, a Christian, get to that point of complete powerlessness?
They've lost hope. They've lost any kind of possibility for it to stop, the abuse to stop.
But if it's in the
And so
past, if it's in the
in the
past and
past,
now,
right.
mm,
Hmm. And so they bring all of this into their relationship with Christ. And this is where the image of God becomes distorted, if you will, um,
mm,
because of all the pain. If the pain was caused by a brother or a father or a male figure in their life, um, the image of God that they behold is going to be oftentimes affected,
mm,
where I can't. I'm afraid to trust God, or I can't trust God because of
mm,
what happened in their past. And so,
mm.
what it is, it's what we have to do is teach them how to apply the gospel to their life, the gospel and um, the cross, what was accomplished for them on the cross.
You're right. At some point, they think their problems are bigger than their God. And when they get
Yes.
to that point, it's very bad. So, in your counseling, when a person has gotten to that point, how do you encourage them to move past this point? How do you encourage them to look at God as one who can heal them?
It is one of, I liken it to discipleship,
Mm-hmm.
because we have to start from square one, from wherever they are in their life right now, in their relationship with the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
and um, teach them, teach them how to um, apply the gospel to their life. Teach them what Jesus did on the cross for them, and help them to overcome
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
and to see the truth of the lies that they're believing,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the bottom line of what their struggle is: truth versus lies.
Absolutely. And just give me a ballpark figure. What is your success rate when someone has gotten to that point to getting them over the hump? Approximately 50, 30.
Oh no, I would say it's a lot higher than that. I would
Oh,
say,
okay, good. Because then you're better than I am. Because, yeah,
no, I believe that when they understand the truth
yeah.
of the cross of Jesus Christ, and they
Mm-hmm.
understand the truth of um, the gospel,
Mm-hmm.
the good news of the gospel, um, and their identity in Christ,
Mm-hmm.
that it's a matter now of living that out. There's a freedom and a liberation that comes with that,
Mm-hmm.
and also a confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So now I would have to say 60%.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Uh
Last
oh.
question. In your article, you say that um, uh, particularly those who are sexually abuse survivors, they tend to carry on the destructive image of their perpetrators. And so, explain how taking on the image of one's perpetrator, how does that happen?
Okay. Um, so you have somebody who has been abused over a long period of time. And to understand the woundedness and the pain that comes along with this person has spent um, years
Mm-hmm.
being hurt by this person who is supposed to care for them and or love them. And um, they this person has become such a powerful figure in their life
Mm-hmm.
that this is all that they can think of.
Yeah. And you see over and over and over again, those who are sexual predators were preyed upon when they were young.
Yes,
And so
yes,
that is unfortunately the reality, the very instrument by which we were abused. We tend to take that on. It's funny how the human nature works that way. And look, working with a lot of people in counseling before in the past, they will tell you it was the most horrific incident in their lives, yet they
yes,
can't explain why they themselves perpetrated. It's
yes.
it's sad. So, thank you, Cindy, for talking to us about the image of God and those being abused. We are going to talk about a lot of things in the future because that's one of the things I don't see too much out there on the net. Christians dealing with their emotions, dealing with their feelings,
Yes.
dealing with issues of abuse and whatnot. And so we're going to have Cindy Calabrese from the Women Biblical Counseling Center on here often, as long as she's willing to come on. We're going to talk about these issues because they are in the Bible. God cares
Yes,
about
they
it.
are.
He
Yes,
cares
they
about
are.
our hearts and our emotions, and that's the whole person. So we're going to do a lot of that. Cindy, thank you. Any
Thank you,
final
James.
words about you and your ministry at the Women Biblical Counseling Center? I'll give you the last word.
Thank you. No, we love to work with women and their family members. It's not just for women; we have men that come as well.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and yeah, just give us a call.
Okay.
Give us a call.
Well, thank you. Like us on Facebook, follow us on the YouTube channel. I am Pastor James Pittman for such a time as this. Thank you, Cindy,
Thank you, James.
and we'll see you all soon.
God bless. Bye bye.